Well, to the world, I thought I would share a book that I've recently acquired that I found to be really intriguing. And I thought I would share, I don't generally share books because I go through so many different phases of ideas and thinking that there's no way that I could even relate the books together that I'm interested in. I such a wide variety. I guess I'll show you my bookshelf in a minute when I'm done with this one. I picked this up. This is called Molecules. What's that? Theodore Gray. My son, at his school, there was a book fair, and they had a bunch of various interesting, informative books. But I saw this on the shelf. My wife actually found this. She's like, "Oh, I bet you'd love this one." And sure enough, I just absolutely love it. It was really interesting because, of course, when we were talking about substances, they had a page in here somewhere where they showed a sheet of acid, and I was like, what? Not LSD, that was of course active, but this was an interesting look at molecules because it breaks it down into not just a layman format, but a way, symbols, pictures, a way for people to actually understand how these compounds start to form from these atoms and how polymer chains work and organic compounds and soaps, and how the lye works to create and link up these chains, and triglycerides and oils. It's just fascinating stuff. And I've always been interested in chemistry, and it's just always been something that, it was really weird actually that I just said that because I found a book this morning. I'm going to grab it because this is too coincidental, I guess. I thought I'd lost it years ago, but this was like one of my first books I ever read when I was young, and all about books. And anybody who grew up in the 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s might have had these in their house. These were written in 1954. And, of course, they're talking about various compounds, isobutane, butane. The one part that I always remember about this book is, since it's, of course, 60 years old, it's still relative today, what our world is made of, and it has a little picture of a campfire. Modern chemistry began at the time our country got its independence. The question interested scientists was an old one: what happens when things burn? Up to that time, the best idea was that anything that could burn contained something they call phlogiston, which I'll just show you how that's written. Phlogiston. And that as a material burned, the phlogiston was given up. This seemed to be a sensible idea because after a piece of wood or coal is burned, there's only a little ash left. So you can see why they dreamed up this mysterious, invisible phlogiston to explain what had happened. Now, of course, we, understand combustion better now, but my point here is that the science at the moment, we did the best we could with what we had. Now that we understand things even a little bit better from, a couple hundred years ago, books like this just seem to be something that anybody could just pick up and read, and really, you either have the prior scientific background to understand these things, or you don't. And what scared me off for a long time from chemistry and this was the idea that, how do we understand how all these things really work? How do we understand how atoms work, and why do they look the way they do? For example, we're always used to seeing diagrams like this, and of course, the symbols like this. There's a whole chapter right here on cocaine. And the one right there before that was about peppers, and they were talking about painkillers. And even back here to the power of peppers, and then the page before it was opium and its cousins, and the page before that was the beginning of the opium chapter. And it breaks down hydromorphone, oxymorphone, oxycodone, and shows how these things work, how naloxone works as an opiate blocker. All these different things are very interesting to me because I'd like to see some of these compounds become, let's just say the old tried, true, and tested compounds, let's say from the old days of the psychedelic revolution, which is LSD. That was lysergic acid diethylamide. That was the original, 60s revolution on LSD. It was much more prevalent than even mushrooms at that time. And over the years, now that we've developed so many new understandings of chemistry and these bonds, there are people who have been making these chemicals that are similar to LSD, LAD and ALLAD, and hundreds of different compounds that are similar to DMT, similar to LSD, similar to opioids. And all of these are dangerous, of course, because we have this idea that since they're synthetic, that they're harmful, and since they're active in such low amounts, they can be very devastating to a person. Not necessarily the psychedelics, but the high-powered opiates. One molecule could be off, and people can die. So it scares people, and I guess that's kind of the whole idea of chemistry. But the more we understand about it, I think the more we understand how these things affect us. There's so many different angles to go on. I mentioned the drug thing, but of course that's not my focus here. I was thinking about the materials generally, the things, the shirt, my skin, everything in my life. I consider the materials that they're made out of, the tensile strength due to the bonds, whether they be like inline, atomic bonds to make nanotubes, or just a thread of rock that could be broken off that's so delicate. Just the way that the different textures and elements go together. You start to see that the line between synthetic, semi-synthetic, and natural or organic becomes the line becomes very gray. It's hard to see if you can take a synthetic opioid or a synthetic drug that acts and works just like its natural cousin. There's going to be this fear that there's got to be some residual dangerous effect because it's not natural. I've used this justification in line of thinking for, let's say, GMOs. I'm opposed to GMOs in my food, but I can't really argue that point for any other way than personal preference or any other reason. I can't sit here and say that, well, since they've changed the genes, then it's not natural anymore, therefore it's harmful. There are reasons why some GMOs are harmful, but it doesn't have to do with the fact that they're not natural. And I think this is something we're learning to get over. That natural is a way overused word. Organic or chemical-free. When there's always kind of laughable to chemists when they hear somebody, a product that says chemical-free, when you know that just about everything is a chemical. One form or another. Many of the things that they're selling is a chemical in itself, but calling it that in its natural form, they'll say all organic chemical free, but it's an organic chemical. And that's okay, because it's because the people are misinformed, is my point. That the people are afraid of these things. When I grew up, and I remember everybody who's grabbed a bottle of shampoo in the bathroom while they're taking a shower and they're reading the label. What is this sodium lauryl sulfate and palmyl lauryl sulfate, and what are all these different things? And they've got to be harmful for me, they've got to be harmful for the environment. Well, when I actually looked into many of these compounds, even the biggest, longest chemical name can often describe something like a vitamin, or a particular cellulose or plant fiber, but it's under its scientific name, and people are scared of that. So we've really had to see, I'm not on the line of thinking that just because something's natural is good for you. My buddy and I used to argue about medicines, because I would say I prefer to take kratom for my pain than an opiate, because it's less harmful and it's more effective. It has more of an overall benefit for me personally. But for some pain, opiates might be better, so I can't say that it's good in all cases. It's just my personal preference. Body chemistries are all different, and the way that we react to these things. One of the most fascinating things about the way that the compounds of like the painkillers work, say capsaicin, for example, that's the stuff you put on your skin. It's warm. It's from peppers, and it they'll use it for hot packs. To take away back pain and whatnot. Well, how it works is it actually heats up your skin by overacting your your nerves, and then your nerves get basically burnt out. It basically works them out to the point where they go okay, and they take a break, and then the pain diminishes because they're not as actively engaged in that pain. It's almost a distraction. We have two different types of pain, and the way that they're, acute and chronic pain can be treated differently. So, I know I'm getting way off base here because I'm talking about molecules, but I'm also getting into medicines, and I guess really the reason was that I'm gonna order this chemistry set. They have a Kickstarter. Actually, this guy showed it in here. It looks like a really, really cool thing, and he was talking about how people think you can't get the good chemicals anymore to make the fun stuff, but he showed this Kickstarter kit. It's $250, I guess, so I won't be able to get it anytime soon. But it comes with all the different things to do all the different tests and a few little beakers and vials, and it's a hands-on approach to seeing how our world really works. To me, seeing how a chlorine atom, understanding how, say, chlorine works, chlorine gas, and why it's so dangerous. It's missing an electron. It wants to attack its neighbor. It wants to pull electrons away from things. And why people choose, say, uranium for making nuclear weapons as opposed to any other metal, because it has the highest, atomic number to use. It has the most atoms in it. Therefore, of course, you're going to get the best reaction out of it. All these little things are simple, basic bits of knowledge, but piecing them all together and seeing a bigger picture of how the world works, to me, is fascinating. And I was watching a TED Talks this morning. It had Emily Wapnick on there. Which I've seen some of her stuff before, and I actually joined a website for multi-potentialites, which are basically people like me who delve really just head on into something, just totally immerse myself, and then I lose interest and I move on to something else. That's something to be embraced, not fought against. As us as individuals, some of us are like this, some of us specialize in a field. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because one of the points she was making was that, say, one person could be a molecular biologist or scientist. They could be completely into the scientific aspects, know everything about that half of it. But you don't have to know all that to work with somebody like that. If you're a specialist, you should always work with someone who's a multitasker, someone who can bring a worldly view in, because often the people who are the most scientific minded really get wrapped up in what they're doing and kind of forget about the basics of, like, well, why am I even wanting to invent this, or what is it that I'm really looking to discover, or what is it that does the world really want this, or it's a matter of getting too wrapped up in one thing, and it becomes an obsession for some people. So it's like keeping each other in check. The person with the obsession has all that knowledge on that subject, and then the other person can bring some worldly ideas. So anyway, my point is that I want to be that worldly one who can know a little bit about everything rather than knowing a lot about one thing. I'm never a specialist. I'm jack of all trades, master of none, if you want to put it that way. But for me, it's about mastering everything, not just dabbling. I want to be good at the things that I do. So I do jump from thing to thing, and I think that understanding the molecules, understanding how things. I guess when I first started making this video, I was thinking, how am I going to bring this full circle and explain my point? I guess it's that different atoms, let's say different molecules, will bond together. Some will never bond. They will never even react together. Others will always react together. Seeing this and understanding this in relation to the macrocosm, how people are, how some people will always go together. Some people will never even, they'll just brush past and never even deal with each other. Other people are constantly, butting heads. We are the molecules. So that was kind of really my point at the beginning, was just to understanding molecules helps us understand the world better. There's a lot to learn and a lot to know. So I guess since I said I'm going to do the picture thing, or I'm going to do a bookshelf tour, I might as well do that for what it's worth. Take this camera off the tripod. And I have some interesting things up here. Oh, various stuff. These are all just random books. Some Castaneda. Michael Talbot, The Holographic Universe. That was an interesting one. The Kabbalah. Over here I've got like this commentary on the Bible. The Necronomicon. Right next to the Gospel. The Lives of Saints. The Bible, as well as the Christian Science Bible. Oh, looks like a package came. Oh, thanks, man. Now that's what I'm talking about. The mailman came earlier, and I was kind of disappointed because I didn't get what I was hoping for, and which is my latest shipment of Kratom. So I'm very pleased that he came back and took the time to actually bring it to me. What a bro. Anyway, yay! I love the mail. So over here we've also got Pharmacopoeia and Pharmacognosis, which are both books about plants, plant teachers. It's, get into that some other time, it's complicated. Oh, books on ethics and Zen, and Teresa of Avila, Collapse by Jared Diamond, that's a good one. Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly Hall, that's of course classic. Oh, even Mere Christianity and the Third Jesus and all these random things. 2012, Guns, Germs, and Steel, Mythology, and then all my various guides. My new Magic Numbers book by Dr. Matrix, it's pretty good. DMT, Spirit Molecule, that's a good one. Anyway, so those are some of the books. Somebody asked about them a while back, so there it is. Weird, I'm hearing noises. Alright, well thanks for joining me on this expedition about nothing and something, and it was good talking to myself. Take care.